To order the meeting of the hospital CEO Performance and Search Committee. Appreciate everybody's being here. It's a new year. Happy New Year. An exciting new year for the hospital, and in particular the work of this committee. Pleased to say that we are underway with our CEO search process, and that will be the item on our agenda for the next couple of months. I'll start with a conflict of interest. If anyone has a conflict of interest that they believe they need to disclose, now is the time to do that. Does anyone have a conflict of interest? If not, we'll move to our mission statement. Dr. Martin, would you mind reading the hospital's mission statement?
The mission is to improve the health and wellness of Nashville by providing equitable access to coordinated, patient-centered care, supporting tomorrow's caregivers, and translating science into clinical practice.
Thank you. Now we move to public comment. Ms. Lester, are there any public comments?
No, sir.
We will move then to approval of the minutes of our previous meeting. We last met on December 10th, 2025. You've been provided a copy of the minutes in advance of the meeting. Before we take a motion, are there any proposed additions or changes to our to our last meeting minutes?
I move that we accept the minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It's a motion that's been properly seconded. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of approval of the previous meeting minutes say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. The meeting minutes are approved. We will move, we have no old business on our agenda, so we'll move directly to new business. And as will be our practice over the upcoming couple of months, we'll hear from our consultants at AMN Healthcare. They are appearing with us virtually by phone. So at this point, for an update on the search process thus far and our next steps, I'll turn it over to Mick and Julie.
Thank you so much. This is Mick Rule. Just to get updated as to where we are and status, I want to start there. We are still waiting on the finalized agreement, which we expect this week. And that's significant and important, mostly because on our end, that really is what triggers everything formally to the launch of the search. So in the interim time, as we know and have been awarded the opportunity to work with you, we have taken the time in the market to at least get started, right, and start to get into market, respond to candidates that have reached out to us as people are aware that we are conducting the search. So we'll talk a little bit about what those numbers look like and what that response looks like. Then we also want to talk about discommunication going forward, make sure that we're all on the same page and we're providing the search committee with what you need as far as expectations. And David, I want to ask real quick, I believe we're going to provide this update every 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, that's correct. The committee has a standing meeting every 2 weeks at this time, and these will be on our calendars throughout the search process.
Perfect. And so we'll join primarily virtually. There'll be a point as we move along in the search in which we will be sharing slides of information, and what it will look like is really an overview of the search process, really kind of a snapshot of our pipeline of the numbers of folks that have responded who we're talking to. This call will be recorded. We'll give you kind of just an overview of that each 2 weeks that we meet. Recorded. So that will be a high-level generic snapshot of the work that's being done. As we venture through this and we start talking about candidates, again, respecting the confidentiality of the outreach and some of the candidates that we're speaking to, we may refer to them by letter or number to provide information and share information with the search committee so you know, and we can discuss backgrounds and experience of who we're talking to. without disclosing specific individuals that we're talking to. So we'll safeguard against that as we go through the search, but we do want to share information again as partners in this search with you. We want to make sure that you're aware of the caliber of talent that we're talking to and make sure it's aligned with expectations. Any questions regarding that or thoughts or insight of what we can expect on those update calls every 2 weeks?
Did I understand correctly that the contract is still not complete, and what is lacking, and what's the timeline for getting that done?
Yeah, and here's my understanding to date. The contract has been reviewed, approved, and agreed upon, and we were just waiting for, my understanding, 2 additional signatures that we should expect before the end of this week.
Just to add to that, I've been in contact with Dr. Blackledge, who is leading our effort to get this contract signed. Because we used the Metro procurement staff to conduct the RFP, they are taking that to conclusion through signature. And as you might expect, they have a very detailed process and protocol for signatures and sign-off. So it has been, unfortunately, slow to finalize and get that done. So that has caused AMN to have to hold off on some of the work that we had talked about at our last meeting. But I think the good news is, as Mick said, we anticipate getting this contract finalized to give AMN the assurances that we have our agreement in place, and we should do that this week. And then going forward, we will end the procurement process, and at that point, the hospital authority will own the contract. We'll be making payments on the invoices, and so we ought to be able to speed along any administrative component of this going forward.
Very good. Any other clarification or questions related to that? All right. We'll just give a quick overview of what we've done. So we have been, I'll call it what we call a soft launch, kind of quietly into the market, reaching out to candidates progressively, but also responding to outreach that have come to us. As this has been publicly announced, we have had individuals reach out to us knowing that we will be conducting the search, and so we're taking advantage of those connections and having conversations, although very early and preliminary, at least having conversations. I'm going to ask Hasham's been doing the bulk of that work on the front end. We'll ask Hasham to speak to that of maybe the numbers and what he's seen in the marketplace so far at this early stage. Hasham?
Sure. Thanks, Mick. Good morning, search committee members. Appreciate your time this morning. As Mick mentioned, until that signed agreement comes in, we're technically working on a soft launch. So actually, since the last time we've been on site, we've reached out to just over 200 prospects. And I call them prospects because they may all be candidates. They all might be folks we simply network with for this opportunity. But we've got just over 200 folks we proactively reached out to. And then, as Mick mentioned, there's passive folks who know about the opportunity who are going to reach out to us and ask us about what we can do to get them in the process. So just over 200 folks reach out to. Our general response rate, just so you all are aware, is between 8 and 10%. We are actually seeing just about 15%. That's a very high response rate. There's a lot of interest in your role, a lot of interest in the organization. And I think the opportunity here, just in terms of not technically turning things around, but really building things up and going towards a brighter future is what's appealing to candidates. So lots of folks. We're going national. We've got folks from across the country. We've got folks from the region. So in the end, as we've mentioned before, for us, it's going to be a matter of not who can just do the job, but who really fits in with the organization, the culture, who can align with your mission, and who's worked with the populations that you all work with. So far, things are looking really exciting. Of the folks I've reached out to, our pipeline currently has 5 potential candidates, 2 folks that I already plan on moving forward, and Mick and Julie for further interviewing in the process. But going back to the agreement and marketing, as soon as we have that agreement, we've actually got an ad ready, and we'll work on finalizing a job spec as well, and those will be things that we officially publicly market for this opportunity, and that should also bring in some passive responses and inquiries as well. Now, just so you all are aware, the marketing isn't necessarily what we're leaning on to gain candidates. It's really just to gain some additional exposure. A lot of our proactive outreach, leveraging our own network and reaching out to these prospects is going to be what really gets us the stronger candidates here. So things are looking good. We're off to a strong start, and things will only get stronger as things finalize.
Do the people that you're looking at now, the about 200, does that include the people that have already kind of reached out to the general over the last year or so with interest in the position?
That is not including them. The 200 people that I have reached out to are proactive outreach. There's only maybe a few people that have expressed interest that fall into that pool immediately, but the numbers I'm speaking directly on are simply things I've worked on. It's not including the numbers of any people who've reached out to us. There was a number of folks you all have sent. I think there was a list of just under 20 folks. I'm not including those as well. Those will be numbers I can include for some additional data, as Mick mentioned, when we do these biweekly updates.
Have you reached out to the list of people that we have submitted that indicated interest so that they know where we are in the process?
We have not yet, and that was one of those things we were waiting for, the kind of the official agreement. Here's, I guess, behind the scenes, just to clarify, until the agreement's in place, we don't have a search record in our system that we're working off of. And so once we do have that, that's where all that structure comes into place, where we do that reach out. We can reach out to them now if that's a preference to the search committee, so they're not waiting any longer for that reach out. We can certainly do that, but our process would be indicative of waiting until we've got the search in place.
Well, there are a number of people who expressed an interest maybe 9 months ago, and I think that they deserve to know where we are in the process. And so
we'll proactively reach out to them then, even at this point.
Right.
I think if only to let them know that you all have been engaged, that you all will be the point of contact going forward. Our last communication to that group of people who proactively expressed interest about 9 months ago was to let them know that we were in an RFP process and we'd be selecting a search firm. So I think just a communication to identify that's who you are and that the process is moving forward would be helpful.
Sure. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we could do that. And that will save, because if we don't, they'll reach back out to you or the organization, so we want to mitigate that as best we can too.
And that serves as a reminder for all of us on the committee and the larger board and staff that going forward, that should be our protocol, that if people contact anybody individually expressing interest in the position, we should refer them to you, and then they become part of the process that way, as opposed to having disparate sort of points of entry all across the organization.
If I might, well, once we have this launched officially, then we will provide you with links and contact information that you can share with those individuals to make it really easy for you.
When would you anticipate that information will be available, or that this group of people would hear from you in one way or another?
This group will hear from us this week. Once we have the agreement in hand and secured with the appropriate signatures, which I understand could be this week, we'll provide you that information as far as links and contact as early as next week. So I can only commit to that based on the agreement being in hand and we have a search record created.
David, do you think it'll happen this week?
I say yes. All signs point to it. I emailed Mick this morning with the latest update, and unfortunately, it's out of our control. I don't know. Other than checking in and conveying the importance of getting this agreement signed, we're really limited in our ability to make this happen this week. But I think it will be done this week.
Are the signatures required from our side already on the agreement?
Yes.
So this is
pending Metro review and pending Metro's signature, and then once all of our signatures are done on our side, the agreement goes to AMN, and I mean if there are any further negotiations, I don't anticipate that there will be. I guess AMN will need to decide when they review the final terms, but they've seen the template of it, and we've talked about the contours of it. But hopefully, once we are done on our side, AMN's review will be quick and not need further negotiation, and they'll sign and we'll be done.
The one overarching comment I want to make is, which we haven't said, is early stages quantity will certainly increase as we go through the search process, but what I am seeing is a good quality response, and even the ones that have expressed interest. So early to evaluate, but at first optics, it certainly looks like a good quality response to the organization and the role itself.
Can I ask about once the agreement is signed and you move forward with job specification and sort of formally publishing that, what role does the committee have in either reviewing or working with you on the job specification, and is that the same thing as a description of the position? I'm curious what that document is and what input is needed from the committee for that.
Sure, that's a great question. So we will incorporate the position description into what we call the prospectus. And the prospectus, we view that as really a one-stop document that is going to include community, organizational, and position information in it. So we share that with candidates after they are engaged in process with us. The search committee involvement, once we have that created, and we'll be able to create that likely in the next week, we will share that with you as a search committee for your tweaks and edits, insight, thoughts on that. But we should be delivering a 80 to 90% finished product for you to just fine-tune and add your thoughts to, and make sure that we're really projecting the essence of the role to candidates. But we'll use portions of it to market the position, but it's an after-the-fact document that we share with candidates that is all-encompassing, again, about the information needed for them to, at a high level, assess the organization, community, and position. But we will certainly seek you as a search committee, your input and insights to make sure that it's reflecting appropriately the organization's interest in the description.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to request that as soon as the perspective is available, that it be distributed to the members before the next meeting individually, so that we can be ready with comments.
I think that's an excellent suggestion, and we will have as an agenda item for our next meeting the discussion and consideration of the prospectus. And Mick and team, if we can get that in the next week, as you say, that will give the committee time to look at it and be ready at our next meeting to discussion about that. I think that's important.
Agreed. It's kind of like the beacon, right? It's the one document that holds us true to what we're looking for. And even at the time when we present candidates, we'll probably start with the prospectus as a reminder. These are what we agreed upon of what we were looking for. So it kind of, it's that North Star, if you will, as we go through the search. So it becomes that important, at least on the front end, to guide us as far as evaluating candidates, and then we'll help you evaluate candidates when we bring them forward.
I agree, and I think that I assume that from the discussion, we had a really good discussion at our last meeting on the types of issues or criteria that would inform a prospectus, and that was a really rich discussion. I think a picture emerged, or a lot of qualities emerged from that discussion that I assume would be part of this prospectus. So I feel like you have a good start to create that document, and so the committee's review would be helpful to finalize that. But I'm glad we had that prior discussion, because a lot of those topics I think are relevant to the prospectus.
Yes, and you bring up a really good point. The position description is a nice, checkbox. These are the requirements, what's needed, and then we bring life to that in really describing the position and really what the organization is asking for. And that's where that intake, that information, the goals, the challenges become important to understanding the role at a more intimate level, for sure.
I believe it was mentioned at the last meeting that individual committee members, board members, people within the organization would be interviewed. Is that happening before you create the perspective or after?
At the same time, and so there may be learnings from that we may want to contribute. And here's how I kind of layer that intake, right? The board's perspective is paramount. The executive leadership team, critical, and then the community leaders, we want all of that input to really kind of shape it. The last part of that in community leadership, we want to make sure that we're accounting for our critique of candidates. We want to make sure that we are including that into our lens as we interview and evaluate candidates for the position. We'll try to incorporate as much of that into the prospectus as we can, but it really helps us in the human factor side of this, right, as we identify and talk with candidates and gauge that fit, that overall fit. The prospectus can provide us so much, but we definitely value the last part of that. That intake will take place through the rest of this month, and so some of that may take place after the prospectus has been agreed upon. If there's anything that we heard that's critical that might be in addition to that, we can bring that up on the biweekly updates to say, is this something that we want to add to the prospectus, or do we feel comfortable with the way it reads?
I appreciate that question, because I do think that the proceeding on a dual track makes sense in the interest of time, and but the input of community partners and stakeholders, as we've said from the beginning, is an essential part of this process. And to update the committee, since our last meeting, I forwarded to AMN the list of stakeholders and partners that the committee developed over the summer that are important people who need to be part of this process. So AMN has that list, and when we talk about soliciting our partner and community stakeholder input into the qualifications and qualities that should be looking for in a new CEO, that is going to be happening to be part of the prospectus, but ongoing to inform our judgment and criteria as to who good candidates are.
And we will be timely in getting those completed. like I said, I'll commit to doing the bulk of that, if not all of it, before the end of the month.
That timeline makes sense to me. I don't know if others on the committee want to comment. People are nodding their heads in approval. So I think that timeline is right. And also for discussion or to remind the committee, because of our public meeting obligations, is difficult for us as a committee to gather and deliberate with community partners without going through all of the requirements of public meetings laws. And so one key attribute of having a search firm is that we can rely on them to go out once we've identified the partners, have those conversations, take notes, ask meaningful questions, gather the input, and then present it to us. It's really the most efficient way for us to accomplish that. And so when Mick says over the next month he'll be doing most or all of it, that is the format that I think best suits this process for us to get the information as quickly as possible, and in a way that's also relies on the expertise of AMN in doing these searches to have these types of conversations.
Yeah, and one more aspect of the timing of that, as Sean's doing his initial outreach and screening of candidates, that usually takes about 30 to 45 days, and that's already started. And then Julie and I start our interviews after that time. And so we would like to have all that intake completed by the time Julie and I start our interviews. So the timing works really well to do that.
All right. Mick, any further updates? Or I guess if there are updates, we'll start with that. Otherwise, I think part of the structure of our meetings going forward will be to get updates and information, take whatever actions the committee needs to take in order to keep this process moving forward, and also to know from you all what it is that before our next meeting you need the committee to do, either at this meeting or to be prepared to do at the next meeting. So that the question now, I guess, if there are no further updates, what is it that in the short term now you need the committee to be doing or thinking about?
Yes, I've looked at it. Our position description, job description that we received from the organization is dated April of 2025. I'm assuming that remains current, and there's no changes since that. If there is, we would ask for an update on that job description, but I would think that that's probably the current one, and nothing has changed since. Our deliverable then would be in between these meetings, before the next meeting, we will have the prospectus created in draft form that we will share individually with the search committee members, and we will then be in a position to discuss that further on the next meeting. And this is all with the assumption that the agreement will be back in hand here this week, and everything I've heard and folks that I've talked to indicates that will be the case.
Great. Then I'll ask Ms. Lester to include, in addition to the prospectus that you are going to send for the committee to review and be prepared to discuss, also the April 2025 job description in the event that's something that we need to tweak or alter. I agree with you, Mick. I would not think that the description of the position has changed since April, but it'd be good for the committee to review. So we'll be prepared to discuss and comment on both things at our next meeting.
Perfect. Very good. And I would close it with, if there's any questions for me or the team, certainly open to answers, but we'll look forward to the next update with probably much more to discuss and make decisions on.
Great. Any other questions for Mick and AMN team? All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate that update. My most immediate marching order is make sure the contract gets routed to you for signature, so I understand the assignment. All right. Well, I think that concludes our new business. Is there any other matter that the committee wants to raise at this time? Okay, if not, then we will have our next scheduled meeting 2 weeks from today. I neglected to say at the beginning, there is a delicious lunch. As always, we thank the hospital for providing us lunch, and when we adjourn, people in the room and those waiting outside the room are going to enjoy a really nice lunch, and we appreciate that. Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a, all right. Thank you very much, Dr. Miller, Dr. Nettles. There's a motion and a second. We stand adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.